Well, hello, folks. My name is Dan Hankowitz. I'm a voice actor based here in beautiful Springfield, Illinois. And this is a new venture for me. This is a video interview series that I'm going to put on LinkedIn. And I'm very pleased to be joined this evening by Mr. Ron Kaszuk of Rek Services from Athens, Illinois. And before we went live, we had a little chat about the proper pronunciation of Ron's last name, and he told a little story about that. And I don't think I would do it justice. Ron, why don't you tell us how the surname came to be pronounced Kaszuk, and then I can go into Hankowitz,
All right.
Polish name.
All right. Well, first of all, Dan, thank you for having me here. This has been really fun, even though it's only been a few minutes already. Um, so my last name is actually pronounced Kaszuk in Polish. And when my family came here in the early 1930s, I believe it was 1933 to be exact, which was a little bit before a whole bunch of really bad stuff happened in Poland with Hitler and all that. And my family's seen that coming. And so they came to America, and when they got off the boat here, when the guy was collecting names, he actually mispronounced my family's name, and he said Kaszuk. And my grandparents just thought that was, that sounded American. And that's the way they pronounced it. And another thing, when they came here, they didn't teach anybody to speak Polish. So none of us actually speak Polish either, even though they speak it perfectly well.
And if we do have any listeners or viewers in Poland, the proper pronunciation of my last name is Hankiewicz, but the Americanized version is Hankowitz, which nobody can pronounce. And in the days before caller ID, people would say, Mr. Hank, okay, you don't know me, goodbye. So, Ron, the reason why I wanted to talk to you is because we've been connected on LinkedIn for a little bit now, but we've not had the opportunity to chat. And I noticed that you're quite active on LinkedIn, promoting Rek Services. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your business and what you do?
Well, I paint. I paint just about anything, but the big chunk of what I do is I paint houses. I know the graffiti stuff gets a lot of attention, but I paint houses, interior and exterior. And the weird thing is that being an artist, I enjoy painting houses just as much as I do painting art. But what the company is, it's a painting service, a full service painting company. I can come in and paint anything in your house, but I offer graffiti as a service. I remember just not that many years ago, I was seeing a lot of people buy those things called fat heads, and they were putting them in their house, those big stickers on the walls. And so my idea was to bring that same style in, but handcrafted, right there in your house, so your living room or your video game room and whatnot. And so I offer graffiti as a service, and it turns out that it's successful. And I created a market using LinkedIn primarily. I started posting pictures and let me backtrack. I started a painting company. Okay. And with the idea of selling graffiti. And I had to tell as many people as I could that idea, no matter how stupid that sounded. And LinkedIn turned out to be a really good place, because now my business is actually officially named #Rek Services. But in the beginning, it wasn't. It was just Rek Services, like it is on my hat. Rek is my initials. And I started using the hashtag under my pictures, and then one day I just decided to check Google by putting the hashtag into Google, and lo and behold, everything I had been posting on LinkedIn showed up on Google because of that hashtag. So I immediately got the idea to change the name of the business to the hashtag, and it was kind of a sociological experiment to not get a website and see how much information can I pack with this hashtag, with my crazy idea to paint houses and sell graffiti. And then I just stayed at it. Like, somebody told me one time, they were talking about the Grand Canyon and how that little river made such a spectacle just by doing the same thing over and over and over again, day in and day out. And so I just kind of bombarded LinkedIn with that hashtag, and started selling it, and it started working because everybody on LinkedIn is, they're very professional people. And a lot of times there are people that are just sitting at a desk that are bored and looking for something cool. And it's really cool to see somebody doing graffiti and actually putting hard work into it and trying to make a life out of it. So I had that going for me, and people were really watching. And then because they were business professionals, they also had the money to spend on it.
So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I would love to hear some questions.
I was just curious about what percentage of your business is traditional house painting versus way out there graffiti. What's kind of the balance for you, Ron?
Right now, it's about 60 house and 40 graffiti, but that's down from about 90% houses and 10% graffiti. So there's an improvement there, and I'm hoping that in the next year or two that I am still painting houses, but the graffiti just outshines everything, and that hopefully that'll be the bulk of my income before long.
So, when you meet with clients for the first time or when they contact you, do they have a pretty good idea of what they want? I guess what I really want to know is, have you ever had a client who contacted you just about a traditional paint job, traditional suburban looking paint job, and you were able to go from that to a graffiti job?
Absolutely, absolutely. Matter of fact, one of my first ones was exactly that. A lady had hired me. Some of her grandkids played basketball with some of my stepchildren, and so she knew I painted houses, and I started painting the bedroom and a bathroom. And it turns out that one of the bedrooms she was having me paint an accent wall on was to hang some local art on. So I found my opening, and then found out she was really into Nintendo. Here was a 67-year-old lady, and she was a very avid Nintendo player still. And I talked her into a video game room, and we did a video game room in a bedroom that her kids grew up in, and then her grandkids grew up in, and now everybody's out of the house, and it's her own private video game room.
So, where do you draw your inspiration? Um, Maybe in a case when a client isn't quite sure what they want, and they kind of give you, and they kind of give you.
I just went through that, actually. I just went through that. So this wall that you see behind me, I can't. All right, so I can't. I'm actually not even supposed to release this to the public yet. Nobody's supposed to see this wall. It is what it is. I mean, there's a coronavirus. Who cares? Excuse me. But this project here was the toughest project I've ever done. Because we kept changing things, and we didn't know. They had a general idea of what they initially wanted, but then they have contracts with other people, and not everybody was pleased with that idea. So I had to keep going back to the drawing board. They were very adamant that they wanted me as an artist, but at one point I was like, I don't want the project because I had to keep changing and drawing inspiration. So you ask where, a lot of it is comic books. I love comic books, and it's a very new love to me. I've always loved the toys and stuff like that growing up, in the video games. But a lot of graffiti artists, especially in the early 80s, they were drawing their inspiration from comic books. So here recently, as I started to make this life dream come true, I went back to their roots, and I started to really draw from comic books. So I'll spend hours sometimes flipping through the pages and not even actually reading the stories, but seeing what other artists who've come before me have done and how I can use that in my work. So that's a huge source of it. But then sometimes it's really just the internet, man. Nowadays, I'm flipping through and seeing what other people are doing and seeing what I don't like about what they're doing and how I can use that for myself.
Now, I couldn't help but notice on LinkedIn that you mentioned one of the services you provide. You provide man caves and she sheds. Can you give us a working definition of both of those things? What is a man cave and what is a she shed?
Okay. Well, the man cave. Essentially, this room that I'm sitting in is actually a man cave. We've got some more stuff. I just can't show you yet because of the project.
Sure.
But there's a big flat screen TV on the wall. I've got a basketball hoop hanging over here. I've got a full size locker that actually used to be in a Indiana State Federal Penitentiary. And the man cave is someplace for the guy to go where his wife's not. Plain and simple. And it's not that we don't love our women, we do. But plain and simple, they loved us. They were their most attracted to us when we had time away from them. That because we were who we were the day that they were like, who is he? And so we need to regain that sometimes in a separate room, a separate part of the house. In my house, it's in what used to be the garage. The people before me bought this and transformed it. But the man cave is just someplace for the guy to just go and have guy time. For me, I like to read comic books and think about graffiti art. So a lot of my stuff's based around that in a street culture, kind of like a back alley thing. That's why there's the locker and the basketball hoop and stuff. But other guys you'll see will have pool tables and bars set up and all kinds of sports paraphernalia. And the ladies, as of recently in the last 10 years or so, I keep hearing about these she sheds. I haven't actually done one yet. I do list it as a service I provide because I'm looking for one to do. But I've looked at several she sheds, and what's going on is these women have got these rooms set up, and some of them look like almost like a childlike dollhouse, all the way down to where it could be like some place for some woman to relax, and it's just a very strong female atmosphere of a bar, and so that I hope I'm describing that well enough, but that's what man caves and she sheds are. And so what I offer when I offer that service, I've got guys that do sound and lighting and construction. There's carpenters, me as the painter, and I'll come in and I'll find out what people really, really like, and we'll build the whole room around that. Like the first one I just described, the Nintendo video game room. I mean, it's a whole room, all of Nintendo stuff is what it is. I mean, I've got Nintendo art hanging on the walls, stuff on the shelves. There's video games and TV and all that good stuff. And so that's what we do.
So Ron, what do you like most about Springfield?
Oh man, that's a tough question because there's a lot of things I don't like about Springfield. It really is. It really is. But one of the things that I did like the most, all right, so I grew up in a Catholic church in Chicago, and I don't feel like everybody at church really knew each other. When I came here to Springfield, I felt like people were a little bit more close-knit. I do feel like families are more loyal up in Chicago than they are down here. There's just not a strong loyalty bond. But one of the things I liked, there was a lot of close knit, like people willing to help you in the community, people that wanted to see you not just survive as a business, but thrive as a business. I found a lot of welcoming and open arms for a guy like me, and I just wasn't expecting that.
So we mentioned LinkedIn and you being quite active. I know some people have very good results from LinkedIn and others don't. I think somebody described it quite aptly as a place where everybody's running around pretending not to sell, but everybody really is selling.
Absolutely. I agree with that, actually.
Do you do any marketing of your business outside of LinkedIn? Any postcards or cold calling, or is it all
No.
LinkedIn and refer? Where do you get most of your?
I would say 90% of my business comes from LinkedIn.
Really?
That's just, yeah, absolutely. I'm paying my mortgage and car payments and everything from what I've done on LinkedIn, and the connections that I've made. But I've made some very, very solid connections. Some people that early on, when this sounded like a crazy idea, that I wanted to sell graffiti, some people that really just that believed in me and said, you know what, that's crazy enough to work. And I found them on LinkedIn and in Springfield. So it's been very good to me. Yeah. I'm not making a ton of money, but I don't have any kind of public assistance or nothing like that. There's no link card, no medical cards for the kids. We pay everything out of pocket. And we're not broke yet, so it's working.
So anytime you do something a little bit out of the ordinary, not just in Springfield, but anywhere in the world, it's always hard getting going. Ron, for you, what was the hardest thing starting up?
All right. So when I came out as a painting business and I was painting people's houses, everybody thought it sounded cool that I was a graffiti artist until they actually seen me posting graffiti. And then it seemed like it kind of posed the question in their mind of was I or wasn't I a criminal? Like what's going on with this guy? So I would do a really cool graffiti project, and then all of a sudden for 3 months I wouldn't get any requests on LinkedIn. And this was consistent. Like I've actually ran tests on this, so I would get all this burst of stuff when I'm painting houses, and then I would drop a graffiti project and I'd get a lot of good positive responses, but all my sales requests would stop. Nobody wanted a graffiti artist in their house. It was, I don't know the exact reason behind it, why that happened, but that was a huge challenge, especially since that was my goal.
And has there ever been a case where you've done any kind of a mural or a graffiti, and maybe the neighbors weren't all that crazy about what's going on next door? Has that ever come up?
No, actually, no. It's been quite the opposite. Usually, especially if I'm outside, the neighbors want to see. Because it's one thing. I mean, any one of us can go, stop at a train track, wait for a train, and we're going to see some graffiti. But we're not all going to get to see it done. So that's been a huge selling point when people can actually see it. And come talk to me, and I'm not fumbling my words, and I'm making sense, and I'm presenting myself well. It's worked. It's just worked.
Okay. And the average job, how long does it take? I'm sure it runs the gamut, but is there kind of a garden variety time frame?
Yeah, a wall like what I got behind me, and this is, I would say I think that's 14 by 10. I'm looking at 2 days of just artistic physical labor there. But overall, I mean, if you're talking from the planning stages, it can be 3 months or more.
Okay.
I mean, including planning. But the physical labor is just days. I've got it down to a science.
And it's just you? You don't have any employees?
When it comes to this artwork, no. When I'm painting your house, yes.
Okay. Okay.
Now I do have someone in mind that I'm grooming right now, a local Springfield area graffiti artist. Um, and it's somebody that actually the Springfield police actually contacted me a few years ago and asked me to see if I could find out who he was. And I had a hell of a time finding him, but eventually I did a piece and he found me. And so I'm grooming him now and seeing if he can stick to his guns. And I would love to bring him on as a full partner at some point, actually.
So I asked you about what was the hardest part about starting up. Uh, what is the part about running your own business, being your own boss? Because a lot of times that kind of gets glamorized and people don't quite understand that you have to wear every single hat.
Every single hat.
Every single hat. And by the way, I'll be expecting an REK, a hashtag REK hat of my own. We'll get to that later. But what is the part of running your own business that you like the least?
Actually, what you just described, the part where everybody just, no, really, the part where everybody just assumes that it's glamorous. There's 10% cool stuff, and then there's 90% me gritting my teeth and cussing and people trying to stay out of my way. So that's it. The part where people just assume that it's glamorous. I've had friends when I tell them when I get back to back awesome projects, and they're like, "Oh, that's easy for you to say," and I'm like, "No, you have no idea how hard I've worked and what I've had to endure to get here." I think that's the part that I like. That bugs me the most. Other than that, the hard work. I've been working hard my whole life. I don't really care about that. Blood, sweat, and tears. I'm in it.
Do you feel like do you do anything to expand your own repertoire, your own skills beyond just the jobs that you take on? I mean, do you undergo any formal training, or do you just kind of grow in your own skill as the business grows? How does that aspect of it play out for you?
Yeah, no, there's not really any formal training that I've went through for any of this. A lot of it is me just pulling from my life experience. But there are absolutely things that I do have to study for. And sometimes it takes weeks and months to study, just like anybody else taking a course. If you've looked at any of my pictures online, they're coming out pretty crisp and pretty clean and to the point. That's because I studied photography, I studied editing, and I played with the software for months and months on end before I even released one picture. So although it's not formal training, it's still training that I have to go through. But a lot of it's the rest of it's just trial and error. I live by this theory that it's only paint that I'm messing with. So if I mess up, wait 12 minutes or an hour and I can just fix it. So that part, yeah, that's nothing.
So as we sit here taping this, we are in the midst of the coronavirus crisis, unfortunately, and it doesn't appear as though things are getting better. Has that had any impact on your business at all? The whole social distancing thing, is that?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Everything has stopped. But also, though, with that, a lot of that was by choice. I do have another mural that's outside that I could be painting in Springfield right now. But the social distancing thing is important. My wife is a nurse, and she works at a retirement home, so we're taking it, extreme measures here. Cleaning the whole house top to bottom every other night. And so now I told you the other day, I'm the primary parent. I am absolutely Mr. Mom right now, especially when she's at work, and I'm fumbling through it, but I'm doing all right. But it has affected my business. Yes, everything has stopped. I don't want to be in people's homes, and I don't want people to be worried about me being in their house. Especially if I'm there, and then they hear that I say Kristen is a nurse. That's the last thing you want to hear at this point. So yeah, it's affected me. Yeah.
So Ron, aside from work, what are some of your hobbies? What do you like to do when you're not painting and grinding away at hashtag Rek Services?
I'm so lost in that grind right now that I'm actually hitting a point where I'm going to be 43 in September, and so I'm hitting a point where I'm getting very real with myself that I don't know myself anymore. I've given my all to this business and this idea. So I don't really have a lot of downtime to have my own hobbies. My biggest and number one is my family. If I'm not working, I'm here. Absolutely, I am a homebody. My family's as messed up as anybody else's, but I like to be here. We've got a daughter that's going to be 3, and I like to spend as much time with her as possible. She's the one that you see in all my pictures, pointing at stuff and laughing, and so that's my biggest hobby. I wasn't a great father early on. Matter of fact, I was an absentee father for a long time. I was lost in like this street life before I cleaned my act up, and so a lot of that guilt of what I can't turn the hands of time back and fix, I'm applying it in my own home now, and just be like, I'm never going to be that dad again. So that's my hobby, is trying to be a good dad, trying to be a better neighbor, and I fail at it all the time, but that's my hobby, really.
Now, we don't need your exact address, but whereabouts in town are you hanging out? Now, I'm over here on the near west side on West Laurel. Whereabouts in Springfield?
I'm actually not in Springfield. I'm actually
Oh, that's
in
right. You're in
Athens.
Athens. Yeah.
I'm in Athens, and I'm not far from the Area Glass Apartments. That people around here know where that's at. Just most of my business, probably, yeah, about 90%, maybe more, is in Springfield, though.
So where do you see the business going in 5 years, 10 years, taking on more employees, bigger, more projects?
Absolutely. More employees. I need a small office to handle what I alone do. If I were to break it up and say, here, this is what needs to be done, I'd need a team of people. And so, yes, I do see that happening. And where do I see Rek Services in 5 years? I see this a lot more famous than it is right now. And I know that sounds cocky, but I've put a lot of effort into making the right connections, and it's happening. I've made some really cool connections that I can't tell you about on camera. I will tell you about afterwards if you're interested. And so I seen this being a lot more famous, and in maybe 10 years, if I'm still doing this, hopefully maybe there's a TV show or a movie or a book or something out of it, maybe, who knows? My life's been very interesting, so I could definitely see it making a tragic story with me being both the good and the bad guy.
Now, I had the great pleasure of interviewing Chris Bullock. He is the general manager of Capital Radio Group on my other podcast. And this was solely for the benefit of those people who are listening and watching who do not reside in Springfield. So, Ron, I generally don't like to put my guests on the spot, but I will leave it to you to explain to the world, or all 6 people who are watching this, what is a horseshoe and what goes into it?
Oh, man. Okay. Springfield staple. All right. So a horseshoe is, if you like truck stop food, greasy food, fast food, food that's going to really, take a beating on your ticker, this is what you want. So a horseshoe is an open face sandwich. It is 2 pieces of traditionally Texas toast, mostly here in Springfield. And it's usually toasted or grilled on the flat iron grill. And then they'll take whatever kind of meat that you want and put that directly on top of that, a mountain of fries, and then a cheese sauce. And they're going to ask you if you want white or yellow cheese, because Springfield has its own white cheddar cheese sauce that's really famous. And I suggest trying them both if you're going to try it. But from what I understand, where the horseshoe started, if I read correctly, it started out as something similar. It was ham on bread, and it was bone-in ham, so it was cut down the middle, laid on the bread, and they had little baby red potatoes cut in half and put all around, so it actually resembled a horseshoe, and then some kind of cheesy sauce on top of that. But now we use French fries, and I highly recommend it. It was the first food I've ever tried in Springfield. My first day in Springfield, I ate a full horseshoe and a pony shoe in one sitting.
Now, one question that I didn't ask Chris, because he has to worry about sponsors. You and I don't have to. We don't have that concern. Where can you get the best horseshoe here in Springfield? In your opinion, who's got the best one?
Oh, see, now this is tough. You're putting me on the spot because, well, I've got friends that are business owners, and you know what? I'm going to be honest with you. I think my favorite. Let's go there. My favorite is at Gyro Stop, the Gyro horseshoe.
Sure.
That is my absolute hands down favorite one. But coming in strong at number 2 right now is Fairlane. They do a Coney. Yes, they do a Coney Island dog horseshoe, and I recently asked them to do a Chicago dog style horseshoe, and they did, and it was phenomenal. And I've had a chance to speak with the new owner. I had actually mentioned that same horseshoe to the last owner, and they blew me off. This owner, they not only did they make it, but they immediately, I wasn't even out of the driveway, and they were posting it on Facebook. I'm serious. And so that I thought that was cool. I'm all about publicity. And so I started talking to him, and we're actually going to sit down. I've got some other menu items that I'm going to recommend to him and see if he grabs for it, because I've got actually 20 years experience in the food and beverage industry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Ron, you are a social media influencer, and certainly in more ways than one. Since you're a Chicago guy and I'm a Chicagoland guy, we could talk about food all day long, I suppose. But your time is valuable, and I certainly appreciate you coming on. Ron, for folks who want to get in touch with you and who are looking for their next mural or house painting job, what is the best way to get in touch with you, sir?
You can call me directly at actually area code 217-503-7452. That's my direct cell phone number, or you can put this hashtag Rek Services into any search engine. Doesn't matter what app you're on. Chances are I'm on it or and shared on there, and you can get a hold of me that way.
And of course, if you're not following Ron on LinkedIn, I would highly recommend it, because you're always posting very colorful, very interesting content of all the jobs that you do, and I have to say that I've enjoyed following you, and it's been a pleasure to get to know you and chat with you this evening. Ron Kaszuk?
Yes.
I got it right. Kaszuk.
Almost. Kaszuk.
Kaszuk. Oh my God.
Yeah, I know. It's a rough thing. So wait, before this ends, you said you're from Chicagoland originally, but you said Chicagoland. So
I am from DuPage County, from the village of Westmont. Actually, my father was from Chicago, and my grandparents were from the old country. My paternal grandparents died before I was born, and my mother is from the suburbs. And so when my parents got married, they moved out to DuPage. So I'm from the 630 area code. So I have.
All right.
I don't quite have the Chicago accent, but I certainly.
I don't know if I do or don't anymore.
Well, I've been told by a couple of people down here that they can hear a trace of it. I've always thought of it as kind of just flat Midwestern, and being a voiceover guy, I get hired for just doing flat Midwestern reads, and I can do a little bit of a twang, but me personally, I've been down here in Springfield for 20 years, and I really like Springfield. I just love it. You can get anywhere in town in 5 minutes. I'm centrally located here. The golf is cheap. Shout out to my good friend Lance Fleury out at Lincoln Greens. There's just a lot here in Springfield that I really like, and I can say to you that we're a better community for having REK Services, #REK Services, in our midst. So
thank you so much, Dan. I genuinely appreciate that. That means the world to me. Thank you.
Ron, once again, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Dan. I appreciate it.